Presentation in Parliament House, Canberra, 8 September 2015. A Camelot moment. Bruce Maguire.
Thank you, Marianne, and good morning, everyone. This is the first time I've spoken in Parliament House, and that's quite a memorable occasion for me. Some of my earliest memories feature the 17-inch black and white television that was in the lounge room of the house that my parents and I lived in. The house was in Revesby, which is a southwestern suburb of Sydney, and the time was the late 1950s. The television sat on tapered wooden legs. It was a square plastic box, and the outer edges of the frame met in very sharp corners. As a 3-year-old who enjoyed running through the house, I had to be careful not to knock my head on it. There was a large, round metal dial on the TV for selecting the channels, and it made a satisfying clunk when you turned it. There were also 4 small cylindrical knobs. The one on the far right was the on-off switch and also a kind of tone control. The second knob controlled the volume, and the last 2 knobs did things to the picture, but a blind kid like me really couldn't see the point of that. When you first turned the TV on, it made some very high-pitched squeaks and hisses. If you switched it on before about 10 a.m, that's all you got, because television broadcasts weren't 24/7 back then. These were the days before the reign of the infomercials. And by the time the daily program started, my father had long ago left for work, and it was still an eternity before the baker's van would come around with loaves of bread and waxed paper and pies and cakes for lunch. There are exciting programs to watch: Mr. Squiggle, Bugs Bunny, Playroom, not to be confused with Play School, and Andy Pandy. And my mother and I watched them all. As a blind kid, there were things about these programs that I didn't know because I couldn't see the visuals. I didn't know, for example, that Andy Pandy and his friends Teddy and Loogie Loo were puppets. I thought they were little kids just like me, and I figured that the picnic basket they lived in must have been a very large one. But there was always plenty of dialogue, so I never felt left out or left behind. Television was like a friend, almost as good a friend as Philip, who lived across the street and whom I spent time with most days. Television was woven into the fabric of my safe and secure childhood world every bit as much as the baker's van, the Morris Oxford car that my father drove, or my grandparents who lived a couple of suburbs away. Television was officially launched in Australia on September 16th, 1956, when Bruce Gingill announced, "Good evening and welcome to television." 1956 was also the year after my parents were married and the year before I was born, so television and I grew up together. I remember the Captain Fortune show, Felix the Cat, the Magic Circle Club, the Flintstones, and later the Saint, Perry Mason, Homicide, Division 4, and Matlock Police. I think it was the Australian-made police drama series Matlock Police that began my painful alienation from television. Colour television was introduced to Australia in 1975 near the end of the Matlock Police series, but just in time for the final few episodes to be shot in colour. What I started to notice was the reduction in dialogue and the increasing use of visual effects and content that I, as a blind person, can't follow. Television has always been about both sound and pictures, but over the last 40 years the focus has been more and more on the visual elements of television programs. So by the early 1980s, television and I were almost completely estranged. I couldn't follow most programs, so watching television was no longer enjoyable. I felt left out and left behind. My friends stopped asking me to watch TV with them because they knew they'd have to spend most of the time explaining the visuals to me. In the morning tea room at work, my colleagues talked about the TV programs they watched the previous night. I couldn't join in the conversation because I wasn't able to watch any of those TV programs. My mother enjoyed watching television, but she and I were unable to share the programs that she was watching. And even Andy Pandy had changed. By 2002, he and Teddy and Looby Loo were no longer puppets living in a picnic basket and controlled by a strings-pulling puppeteer, but a group of friends who lived in a village and owned their own houses, all conveyed by stop-motion animation. By 2012, much sand had run through the hourglass and the days of my mother's life were growing shorter. In July that year, she was diagnosed with a severe heart condition, and one of the few activities she could still engage in with enjoyment was watching television. And in one of those breathtaking synchronicities that we occasionally encounter, I was able to watch it with her and share her enjoyment. I was able to do this because in August 2012, the ABC began its 13-week technical trial of audio description on ABC One. Each week, 14 hours of programs were broadcast accompanied by audio description. For the first time, I was able to watch Rake and understand what was going on. For the first time, I could watch as time goes by and know why it was funny. And for the first time, I could watch my mother's favourite program, Doc Martin, which stars Martin Clunes. Each Saturday evening at 7:30, my mother and I would watch Doc Martin, she in her house, me in mine. She would call me on the phone afterwards and we would talk about the doctor's abrupt, abrasive but ultimately good-hearted manner. She would say, "He's rude, isn't he?" Or ask, "What did you think when he stole that wheelchair in the hospital?" And we were able to have a relaxed, natural conversation and we were able to connect and bond, and without audio description those conversations could not have happened. And now whenever someone says Doc Martin, I remember that one 13-week shining Camelot moment when my mother felt alive and audio description allowed me to feel included in it. While I was in Camelot, going to work was more enjoyable too, because for the first time in 30 years, I was able to join in the morning tea conversation about the television programs we had watched the previous night. And when there was controversy fueled by Summer Heights High, I was able to add my view to the maelstrom without having to play catch-up. In one of the first episodes of Andy Pandy, the narrator tells us that Andy Pandy is on screen. She says to Andy Pandy, "Show the children how high you can go." I can't remember watching that particular episode when I was 3 or 4, but I probably did. And today, 50 years later, I can reflect with pride that in many areas of social inclusion and disability rights, Australia has gone as high as anyone. We passed the Disability Discrimination Act over 20 years ago. We've ratified the UN Disabilities Convention and we're implementing the NDIS. But when it comes to providing audio description on free-to-air television, the rest of the world has passed us by. If I lived in the UK or the US or Canada or New Zealand or most anywhere else, I could sit down with a glass of wine or a cup of coffee at the same time as everyone else and watch my favourite programs. Audio description is a taken for granted, non-controversial, unremarkable part of everyday life, except in Australia. So Australia, let's show everyone how high we can go by saying welcome to audio description. The rest of the world is waiting for us, and as a blind person living in Australia in 2015, so am I.